Welcome everyone to another episode of Get Tech Smart. I am your host, Flo Nicholas, and we are here talking all things tech as usual. And today you're in for a treat because you'll probably hear things like Google Analytics and Facebook Analytics and search engine optimization. But what in the world does that even mean? I'm happy you asked that because, well, today we're going to get answers to that. So welcome to my guest, Logan Schneider. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good.
Okay.
It's fun to be here.
Hey, we've met at several events. Well, okay. In all honesty, the second event, you didn't really see me. It was I saw you at the Tech Alliance event.
Yep.
But we started, chatting before that at a networking event and, got to know each other a little more. And your company has optimization.
Correct.
And I was curious, like, okay, well, what do you do? And we started, chatting about Google Analytics and, started asking you questions and the light bulb went up in my head and I said, you're my next guest. So welcome again. I'm really glad to have you here. And you kind of call yourself like, little Google Analytics expert guru.
I think my LinkedIn says something like a digital marketing wizard is my title, actually.
Even better. I like the word wizard.
Wizard is a good word, yeah.
It is an excellent word. So one of the things I see a lot, you mentioned LinkedIn. I'm always seeing the search engine optimization wizards, experts, gurus, and they're always talking about how to get your website to the top. But sometimes it can be really confusing and overwhelming for businesses, especially small business owners who don't have the luxury of having like a whole marketing department that does that. And then the other thing is, like, as I mentioned, we have all these analytics tools and people are like, why should I use them? Which one should I use? And which one is effective? So we're gonna dig deep into that. So when I spoke to you, you said, listen, I love Google Analytics. You're like, that's my jam, that's my thing, right?
I like playing with data.
Let's start with that aspect of playing with data and what it means for businesses, no matter their size. Why should businesses be leveraging data analytics right now, 2023? Why is it crucial?
I mean, the best time to do it was like 10 years ago, and the second best time, as with everything, is now. There's a saying in analytics that if you can't measure something, you can't improve it. And it might be more accurate to say you might improve it, but you won't know that you are, and you certainly won't be doing so in a strategic way.
Right.
So in order to be able to make improvements in your website and your marketing and your business, you need to know what you're working with. You need to know what your starting point is, and you need to be able to see what's changing as you make decisions, as you undergo marketing efforts, as you do anything with that business and with your website and with your web presence or with your other marketing for that matter. There's also offline marketing that can become digital analytics data. There's all kinds of fun stuff in here, and I could go on at great length. But in essence, it's important because you need to know what is happening, what your starting point is, and what is changing as you do experiments, in essence, in order to really make meaningful progress.
No, I mean, well said, right? I always hear people, and I say this a lot, is you need the analytics to know your areas of success and to know your areas where you need improvement. And that's why it's really critical when you're leveraging data analytics. And for someone who's just like a new business owner, that might seem very overwhelming, like to even start. But let's dig a little bit deeper, right? Because new business owners especially are always, even people who have existing businesses, I'm still talking to you as well. But the thing is really understanding where to even start and how do I even leverage Google Analytics? So let's dive in for us into the Google
Where
Analytics.
do I get started with this? Yeah, I think learning to interpret the data that you're looking at in a system like that is a learning process. That's something that you are not going to be good at instantaneously. I wasn't good at it instantaneously, and now that's my profession in essence. And I've been doing this for about 13 years now.
Wow.
I've been working with Google Analytics and related systems. So the first thing that any business owner can do is just install that tracking code on their website. Basically, any website platform you can install Google Analytics on. You can install it directly, or you can do it using a system called Tag Manager, which is kind of like a little storage system for tags. Adds a little bit of complexity in some ways, but makes some other things easier later. Google will tell you how to get this code installed on your website, as long as you know how to find those correct places to install it. And it's a little bit different for each different site system. For example, if you're on WordPress, you might install it using a plugin, or you might install it using a tag manager plugin. If you're on something like Squarespace or Wix, those have just fields that say, put your code here, and that works. There's other ways to do it too, but that's the quick and easy way if you're trying to just get yourself started. And really the most important thing is to just start collecting that data, because you can have somebody like me come in later and interpret that data, but we can only interpret the data that is there. So if you haven't collected anything, if you're not measuring anything, someone like me can't come in and analyze that data and then help you make improvements. We have to first install the tracking code so that you're collecting information so that there will be something to interpret.
Yeah. And let's talk about what that data is, right? Because for some people, it might be like, what do you even mean by data? What is that?
That's a good question.
So we're talking about plugins on my website, and what am I tracking that is going to be important to me? So let's talk about that part.
Yeah. So some of the most important data that you're tracking is just how many people are hitting your website, how many visitors do you have, and where did they come from? And a lot of the other information sort of stems from that. So what that tracking code does is you've got a little piece of code that's on your website. Each time a page loads, that code executes and sends a little piece of information to Google, in essence. And some of the things that includes is where the user was before they were on the page they're on now. That might be another website, or it might be a previous page of your website. And then it will track when they go on to the next page. And you know from the difference between those things how long they were on that page for. Then we know how many pages they visited while they were on the site. And depending on what things you have set up, you might know what links they clicked, or what, you're going to know what areas of the site they visited. You might know if they've played a video or that they've scrolled a certain distance. But from a marketing perspective, some of the most important information is where were they before they were here?
Yeah.
And then what did they do? And did they do any important actions like a purchase or a contact form or a phone call even? So we want to know if that user came to your site from a Google search, or did they come in from social media, or did they come in from somebody else's website? And that's going to tell you something about your marketing efforts. If they're coming in from Google search, that's going to say a little bit about how your search engine optimization, your search engine presence is. If they're coming in from social media, that's telling you something about how effective your social media marketing is. If they're coming in from advertising or email, or if they're coming in from somebody else's website, do you know that person? Is that someone you have a relationship with, or are they just randomly saying something about you? What are they saying about you?
Right.
And that's all information that you can start to think about once you've got that data flowing in.
Yeah, that's liquid gold.
Yeah.
Right, that is absolute liquid gold, because what you mentioned is where did they come from, right? Were they on your competitor's website, before they got to you? And did they go to another competitor's website?
Well, you can't actually go 3 steps back. So we don't necessarily know if they visited another competitor before you. But we would know, say, if they came in from a Google search, if they were searching something like your competitor's
Got
product
it.
name and then hit your site, you might know something about that,
Okay.
depending on exactly what process people took. It would be really cool if you could
yeah.
see what all of the different websites related to a certain topic were. But fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, data analysis isn't quite that invasive on that personal of a level yet. Now, there are some kind of caveats and exceptions to that involving advertising cookies primarily, but that's like
That's
a
a whole
few
nother
other steps.
discussion, yeah.
It's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, but I mean but again, I think you did it very well. Like, just really explain in very simple terms why it's critical to get that analysis. For again, it also helps in terms of developing the marketing strategy. But then now people are trying to figure out, like, okay, there's so many analytics software out there, right? So we just talked about Google, but then there's also like Facebook. And what's the difference? And what's gonna be more robust? And just let's talk about that.
There are a variety of tools out there that either sort of run analytics for specific purposes, like the Facebook Pixel, or which are sort of Google Analytics competitors. Just like many people use, say, QuickBooks. There's also other software that is very similar to QuickBooks that you could have instead. It does all of the same things, more or less, but it's not exactly the same. Something like the Facebook Pixel is there mostly to help you with analysis of something like your Facebook ads. And it's specifically there to send that data back to Facebook so that Facebook knows which advertising you're running that is causing people to take actions on your website that you want. Without that, Facebook only knows what happens on Facebook's website. In the same way that your Google Analytics tracking code you install on your own website can only tell you about your own website, Facebook can only know what happens on Facebook unless you've got that Facebook Pixel. Because the Facebook Pixel is effectively going, okay, Facebook, you can have some of my data from my website. I want to know what people do on my website when they came here from Facebook so that you can help me optimize my advertising. To get people to do more of the actions that I want. And it's pretty effective. Advertising that has that Facebook Pixel, conversion tracking enabled works better than advertising that's just going, okay, I want as many people as possible to click on this link and come to my website. I mean, that's cool and all. Traffic is good, but traffic is less important than that conversion action. I can send 1,000 people to your website, but if they're not the right people, and for example, if they're doing what's called bouncing, they're hitting your website going, oh, this isn't what I wanted, and leaving immediately, that's not actually of any value to you. And if you're talking about advertising, you're spending money to get those people to your website, but if they're not the right people, that's wasted money. In the same way as if I send 500 people into your storefront, but they're not people who are in the market for what you're selling, I've just wasted your time, basically.
Yeah. So from what I get from that is that, when you're using the Facebook, it's more focused on the ad that you are creating within Facebook. So the analytics that you're getting are more Facebook specific.
Yeah, the Facebook Pixel is there to help you run better Facebook advertising and to a certain extent the organic work as well, but primarily you install that Facebook Pixel because you want to improve your Facebook ads. That is mostly useful information in that Facebook ads context. It's not going to really help you with things like, say, search engine optimization. Right. Because that's not what it's there for. It's there for, meta stuff, Facebook stuff, Instagram stuff.
Right. And when we hear SEO, and I'm sure a lot of people see this acronym, like when they're doing marketing, you hear SEO. Can you just give us like a really simplified breakdown of what that even means?
I live in a world of acronyms, and nobody ever wants to admit that they don't know what the acronym means. Like, oh, I don't want to look stupid here, right? But acronyms are inherently unclear if you're not in the space with them. Like, they can mean different things in different contexts. Anyway, so search engine optimization, what I tell people is that search engine optimization is the art and science of getting your website to show up in search engines, primarily Google, because Google owns about 90% of the search engine space overall.
Such a small space, huh?
Yeah. And for the average website, in my experience, and this is pretty variable, but the average website gets about half of their traffic from Google search. That's probably the most common ballpark figure that I see across like a huge variety of site types. So SEO is directly affecting like half of your potential traffic. That's pretty important stuff. And what goes into SEO is pretty diverse. There's a variety of things that go into good SEO. There's things like how good the content on your website is, how relevant it is to what people are looking for. There's how fast your website loads for people, how easy it is to use, how well structured your information is. Because search engines are evaluating your website using little pieces of software called bots, tiny computer programs. And they are fast and they're thorough, but they're not human and they're not smart in that way. So some of the things that go into what we call kind of technical SEO or structural SEO are organizational factors. In the same way that if you were to, say, walk into a library and they just had shelved all the books every which way, it would be hard for you to find what you were looking for. We have a system called the Dewey Decimal System to make it easy for you to find what you're looking for in a library. There are ways to structure your website that make it easier for that robot, that software program, to find information on your site and to understand what's important and what's not important. For example, the primary title on any given page, usually the largest text, usually at the top of the page, is usually what we call an H1 title. That just means heading 1, like it's a styling indicator. But whatever you have marked as the H1, the bot is going to understand as the most important piece of information. This is the title of the book, in essence, where your page is the book. And so, if you're using that H1 title to say something very relevant, like, on my site, it might be something like digital marketing agency, then the bot knows that that page is about that subject. If you're using that H1 title to say something, vague or that, is not specifically topically relevant, then that bot has less understanding of what this page is about, less understanding of the information. So if I was to say, instead of, small business digital marketing, instead I said something like, this company has optimization.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It might mean something to a human, but it doesn't mean anything to the bot. So the bot doesn't understand what this content is about. And so my page is probably not going to get as much visibility in that Google search because the bot doesn't have as good of an understanding of the content. And that's simplifying and reducing that a little bit for time, if nothing else. But that's kind of the essence of the thing, is you're trying to make your information parsable and comprehensible and clear to a piece of software that is thorough but not smart. It's not human. But you also don't want to forget the human, because eventually the human is who you're selling to. You can't sell things to a bot. So there's a balancing act between making your information parsable to the software and also making your information appealing and visually attractive and easy to use for that human. Yeah. And you can't forget either of those when you're trying to create a good website and a search engine optimized website, because you need both of those things.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is good because I mind blowing, okay? And I think that's one of the things that probably people fail at when they're creating the website, is really clearly identifying what their business does, what service they offer, like just who you are in general. Are you a coach? Are you offering coaching services? Are you a medical supplier? Just people need to know who you are and that heading, knowing that heading, do you think that heading is the primary top on the list for that bot? Or there's what are the top things? So we talked about heading one. What other things? Because I know there's a lot of people who are out here like, I can't even get one person to get on my website, and how do I change that?
Sure. So probably the most important piece of text content on your web page is actually one that humans see relatively little, and that's what's called the page title or the meta title. And that's different from that heading one title that's very visible usually on your page. It's possible to make it invisible actually if you want to, but you shouldn't. Your meta title is what will generally appear in the very top of your browser bar above the address bar, or you'll see it if you hover over that area on your browser. And maybe people are watching this and going, oh. So that's probably the single most important piece of text content is actually that title. And it used to be that title was more or less always what would show up as the title of your search results in your Google search result page. And you'll see the term SERP, S-E-R-P, that's search engine results page. It is not always what Google shows to people in that search engine results page now. Sometimes Google goes, you used a meta title of home. That doesn't mean anything to anyone, so I'm gonna just take the liberty of giving your page a more useful title. Instead of home, it's gonna be, coaching services or, whatever. So Google is sometimes making these decisions for you, but if you look back a few years, it was basically always exactly what you said. And that's also, in fact, like the real primary title that search engine bot is looking for to go, what is this page about? It's just that Google has also learned to recognize that humans don't always recognize that they should pay attention to that meta title.
Yeah. And what you're saying really connects well with the show that I just recently did with Rachel Bellatori, where we talked about, digital marketing. Mm-hmm. And she, talked about doing this, essentially this blueprint mm-hmm. of really understanding who you are and who your, targeted
branding.
Who your targeted clients are, and then essentially where to find them. And it seems like based on what you're saying is you need to understand that in order to leverage that to create your website and then be able to as well leverage, the Google Analytics too. Yep. So you've been doing this for about 13 years. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you're seeing that, clients are making right now? Even just one.
Big mistakes that people make. That's a tough question. I think sort of failing to recognize the importance of, paying attention to the quality of your content is probably a big overarching issue for people. Sometimes people are so aware of what they do themselves that they forget to think about what they need to say to other people, to the people who don't yet know what their offer is. So, they go, oh, okay, I'm going to build this website, but then they have a hard time generating the content that's going to really make sense to the users. And ultimately, that does end up affecting your search engine optimization. Search engine optimization has levels. There's people who do this at a way larger scale than I do. And there's people who are DIYing search engine optimization for their small business and doing a perfectly good job of it. Probably the most important thing to remember when you're trying to improve your own SEO, especially if you're DIYing, is to make sure that you are talking to your customers where they are at. So, using something like a very industry-specific term that the meaning of. I know what SEO means, but if I just write SEO all over my website, some of the people who need me aren't necessarily going to find me because they're not looking for SEO. They don't know that that's what they need yet. So it's important to sort of meet people where they're at, to use the terms that your customers, your clients are going to be searching. That's probably like one of the biggest pieces of do-it-yourself search engine optimization advice I can get from people. Is kind of like run the Jeopardy theory here. Like, what am I the answer to? What question are people typing into search engines where I should be the best answer? And then make sure that your content is addressing that.
Right. And what you bring up is I was thinking about something when you're bringing that up right now, because I think now you can search what clients are looking for. So if people are looking for coaching, or if people are looking for somebody in the digital marketing, I think there's a capability where to see the actual questions they're asking, right?
Yeah, one of my favorite tools, for sort of SEO research, and especially for sort of giving people a sense of what people are and are not searching, is called Google Trends.
Okay.
You can find that at trends.google.com, and they'll tell you things about like searches that are sort of accelerating, things that are being searched more and more frequently. Like when there's a big news article, you'll see like,
Right.
people are searching for like, the coronation of the new King of England or whatever. Like,
Right.
That probably had no search 2 years ago, and now it
Yeah.
like recently had a lot. So you can use that tool to sort of compare and contrast different phrases. And I often use that when my clients will come to me and they'll say, oh, I searched for, this specific term and we're not showing up. And I'll go, okay, but do you know if there's any actual search volume for that? Like, you searched that, but you're one person, you pulled that out of the back of your brain, right? So I'm going to go into something like Google Trends, and I'm going to put in the term that you're using, and then I'm going to put in some related terms and go, okay, what are people actually really searching for? Like, are people very frequently using this term, or are they way more frequently using this other related term? I'm trying to think of a good example of this.
And for products too, like when people are searching for products.
Absolutely.
And I guess what I was going with this is that when if I'm using Google Trends, and I know the specific trend in essentially in my business, should I then take that and dump it on my website so that it pops up in the SEO? Like,
maybe. Probably the caveat to that is that search queries that are very popular are also probably very high competition. I spoke with somebody recently who does virtual events for medium and large size businesses, and what she said to me is that sometimes they have a difficult time in search engine optimization because effectively Zoom is a direct competitor for them.
Yeah.
And they're this big, and Zoom is this big.
Yeah,
and
just global.
Yeah, they've got more money, they've got a bigger website, they've got a bigger marketing team, they've got way more name recognition, and her business is going to be the right thing for the right people. It's going to be a better choice than just like talking to the people over at Zoom, but you have to figure out what search queries are not being totally dominated in the space already. Like, somebody might come to me and say, oh, I want to market my plumbing company in Hudson, New Hampshire, right? Like, well, I'm probably not going to try and get you top search position for the term plumber, because one, that's way too vague, way too big of a term. And also, you don't need to rank for plumber. You need to rank for plumber when somebody, a half mile away from your business is searching for, I need a plumber right now, or my sink is overflowing and I am in a panic. That's what you want to be showing up for. And that doesn't mean that, anytime somebody searches the term plumber, you need to pop to the top of the page. It means that you need to do good locally focused SEO in your area. Like, maybe we want to see you show up at the top of the page when somebody searches for Hudson, New Hampshire plumber.
Right.
Or, for emergency plumber in Hudson, that kind of thing. Those are terms that are probably overall, globally, very tiny slices of traffic. This is not a big place. But if you're a plumber with a small business in a local area, you're not driving 2 hours away for business, and you shouldn't. That's a waste of your time and money. You want the business that's within like 20 or 30 miles of you.
Yeah.
You only really care about what your search visibility is to people who are within like a half-hour drive of where you're located, in essence. And the rest of it is just a wash. Like, if I get somebody to come to your site who lives in Florida, that does nothing for you.
Right. That's that one person.
That's one person, and they can't use your services because they're, thousands of miles away here. Like, you need that little collection of people that's actually in the market for your services to see you. And so those smaller, more specific search terms are actually what's most important to you.
Yeah.
It's not, I want to be number one for like, this big broad keyword. It's like, okay, that's not realistic. That's not something that you're going to be able to achieve. But look, we can go, okay, we can probably get you, into the first page for, Hudson, New Hampshire plumber or 24-hour plumber if that person is searching from your zip code and like those kinds of things. And one of the things that people don't understand is really important to understand is that each individual person and each individual search has different results. If I, pulled out my phone right now and searched, plumber in Hudson, New Hampshire, my results will look different here than if I drive home an hour north of here and then run the same search. It's not going to give me the same results. And if you do it, you're probably not going to see the same results because Google is individualizing search results instantaneously on the fly for things like time of day, device type, where you're located, where you've been in the past, what other searches you've made. So many factors. So when somebody calls me up and they go, hey, I Google searched like, whatever, and I'm not coming up on the first page, I go, look, that doesn't mean what you think it means.
Right.
Like, it might not mean nothing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're never showing up for that term. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the people who need to see your business aren't seeing what you need them to see. Are you in your own target market? You might be, or you might not be. Like, I'm not in my own target market. I'm marketing to people who need SEO and don't know how to do it themselves. I'm not that person.
Yeah.
Your target market might not be who you are. They might not be where you're located. Some people are running businesses that aren't located where they might be doing their test searches from. There's all kinds of factors that go into this that people don't necessarily think of when they're running those, sort of testing searches.
Yeah, and then when somebody runs into that situation where they're coming up on a search and they're not necessarily, like you mentioned, in their target area, how do you clean that up? What's the steps?
If somebody says like, I'm running searches for myself and I'm not finding myself, like if they're running these searches from outside of their target market area, I might tell them how to sort of adjust the search tools to show them results that are going to be a little bit more meaningful. But at the end of the day, I actually, and here today in 2023, I want to encourage people to stop worrying about where they show up for individual terms, because most of your traffic, probably easily more than half of your search engine traffic, is going to come from this whole huge variety of more or less unique terms. I used to know that the specific statistic on how frequently Google searches were unique had never been used before, but it's surprisingly high, even in this world where people are making millions and millions of searches all the time. A lot of searches are still unique, and again, each search result is in essence unique. So rather than running a bunch of test searches and worrying about where you're showing up for individual terms, use that Google Analytics, go back to that, and go, is my overall organic search traffic increasing over time? Am I getting search engine traffic to the most important pages of my site? My homepage, my services pages, whatever is important on your specific website. And then what are people doing once they hit the site? Are those users what we call well engaged? Are they spending a good amount of time on the site? Are they viewing more than one page? Are they performing actions that are important to you, like your contact form or making a purchase or making a phone call? playing your video, whatever it is that your conversion action is, we call them. Google Analytics used to call these goals, and now we call them conversion actions, but it's the same thing. It's that thing that you want someone to do that's more important than other things. Like looking at your content, not super important. Looking at, your shopping cart, more important. Looking at the thank you page you see after you finish that transaction, very important, because that says that person gave you money. You like it when they give you money, right? So we're going to go back to Google Analytics and say, am I getting search engine traffic? Is it increasing over time? Is my engagement of those users improving, or is it good? And are those users converting? Are they doing the things that are most important to me at a good rate? Is that rate going up over time? Is the number going up over time? Sometimes I'll look at somebody's data and I'll go, oh man, like search engine traffic is down, but I see that this, in this period of time, that search engine traffic that we did have, viewed more content and was on the site for longer, and it converted at a higher rate. So we might say, we have 10% less search engine traffic than we had last month, but we have the same number of transactions, which means we had a higher rate of transactions. And so to me, that's not a negative. Even though we have less traffic, we don't actually have a disimprovement overall.
Right.
We are targeting people more closely. We're getting the same amount of traffic that is our ideal traffic, and the traffic that we have lost clearly wasn't exactly our ideal traffic anyways, because that wasn't the most engaged traffic and it wasn't the traffic that was converting. So that's overall, it's at least a net neutral, if not a net positive. If I'm looking at similar data on something like advertising where I paid for the traffic, getting less traffic but the same number of transactions is actually an improvement.
Yeah.
Because that means I'm saving money but getting the same results. And that's a really good thing, especially for a small business. When you're paying for that traffic, every little bit counts.
Yeah. No, I think you did a fantastic job just really doing a breakdown of just how liquid gold Google Analytics is, and just leveraging analytics in general, and just how you can really watch the trends of customers that are coming in on your website, and essentially watching your conversion rate and being able to keep up to date with what's going on. So as we close the show, because it's really funny to me sometimes when I start talking to guests and the time flies by so quickly, because it's like the details of the information. You did a fantastic job at really simplifying the importance of Google Analytics and what it even means for search engine optimization. And I think one thing that I will say that you said that is really critical is that sometimes we focus so much on being at the top of the page when that's not always really realistic, and should not always necessarily be the priority, because you might not be at the top of the page but still have a high conversion rate, as you mentioned. So in closing, what's the last words or tips that you want to provide to the audience when it comes to Google Analytics and SEO?
Ooh, I would say start measuring your traffic. The best time to start was the minute you launched that website, and the second best time is now. In fact, we just launched a new version of Google Analytics, and when I say we, I don't mean me personally. Google did this. So if you've never had Google Analytics before, now is a great time to get the brand new version on your website. Basically everyone's starting over a little bit because it's all new. So jump in the pond now.
Yeah, jump in.
Start
doing those conversion rates. So yeah, well, Logan, it's been fantastic having you here. This has been I've learned a lot, and I'm definitely going to be doing Google Trends for my business. So I appreciate that. And listen, if there's any changes or any new tips that you want to come back and talk about, you are more than welcome to come back. And for everybody else watching at home, I hope you took notes, because there was a lot of golden nuggets here today. And hey, thank you for watching another episode of Get Tech Smart. Stay tuned for more.